Hey guys, welcome to our little live talk about Lhotse. I'm Jim Morrison. I live in Lake Tahoe, California, and Telluride, Colorado. I kind of go back and forth, and I'm a ski mountaineer. I like to climb up stuff and ski back down.
My name is Hilaree Nelson. I'm psyched for everybody that's joining today. I also go back and forth between Telluride, Colorado and Lake Tahoe, two pretty nice places to live. I feel very fortunate. We have a puppy here in our lap. This is Wilson. He says hi, and he's biting my finger, so and his teeth are really sharp. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, so I'm from the Northwest originally. I am a professional ski mountaineer, so I basically try to find really remote places to go and carry my skis for a long time, and then I get to ski on them if I'm lucky and we find all the right conditions. I've been with the North Face as an athlete for a very long time, for almost 20 years now. Just a year and a half ago, I took over as the North Face team captain from Conrad Anchor, and yeah, it's been great. I think we have a pretty amazing team.
I've only been a North Face athlete for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk to you today about our expedition to Lhotse. We're all on this COVID expedition right now. Hope you guys are staying sane and somehow keeping yourself entertained. But
yeah, I think we have about 25 minutes today, and we're actually looking on another computer some questions that were compiled for us, so that were brought up by viewers. So we'll kind of run through those. The first question is, what inspired this expedition to Lhotse? So this trip was in 2018 in September. Jim, why don't you start with what inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, I think our whole lives really sort of came together for this expedition to Lhotse. We've both been really inspired by big mountains all over the world and finding really difficult, kind of obscure lines to go climb and ski. And Lhotse is the fourth tallest mountain in the world. It's right next to Mount Everest. And it's got this couloir that just splits the summit. It's super iconic. It's really easy to see where the line is. It's the only possible place you could ski. And we talked about it for years, and it's been something I've been dreaming about most of my life. And we finally got organized and put together the expedition and tried to make it happen.
I think for me, it was something I had tried to do in 2012 with another North Face athlete, Chris Erickson. And Chris had also tried to ski it the year before. And the ski mountaineering community in general is a pretty small community, to say the least. And then when you get into high altitude skiing, it gets even smaller. So Lhotse has been tried many, many times throughout the decades, throughout Himalayan climbing and skiing. And having climbed it before when there was absolutely no snow, it was like all rock when I was on it in 2012. But it was so inspiring to think of actually coming back and trying again. And so we did it. And a huge part of being able to be successful is having the right team, the right partner. So
we our goal was to go to Lhotse, climb up the Lhotse couloir, get to the summit, and ski the couloir onto the Lhotse face all the way back down.
So just some elevations there. The summit of Lhotse, I'm rounding up here, so just bear with me. But the summit of Lhotse is 28,000 feet, and the Lhotse couloir is about 1,800 feet long. It spills onto the Lhotse face, which is another 5,000 feet. So you end at Camp 2, which is about 21,000 feet. So a total of a 7,000 foot ski descent.
And we put together a really first-class team. We took two photographers, Nick Kalish and Dutch Simpson. They had never been above about 19,000 feet.
20,000 feet, yeah.
And we figured these guys could somehow make it to Camp 2, which is 21,000 feet. And in the end, they made it to the summit, and they filmed this entire escapade of ours and did an outstanding job. If you've gotten a chance to watch Lhotse, or you're going to watch Lhotse after this, hopefully.
Yeah, just when you are watching it, or if you have watched it, just think that, like, yes, we're in front of the camera, but there were these two guys working so crazy hard behind the scenes to take still photography and to capture all the video and everything in between. And like, I can't give bigger kudos to those two and how hard they worked and that they made it to the summit.
Yeah.
It really, their energy was infectious and helped us be successful.
And then we established a team over there in Nepal. We worked with a logistics company, our friend Pemba in Kathmandu, and he helped us organize all our Sherpa, all of whom are from Lhotse, village where the Khumbu climbing center is. Most of these guys we'd been on previous expeditions with and climbed with before, and they really are the backbone of our success and our whole effort to climb this 8,000 meter peak. We did it in the fall when no one else was there. 0 people were at Everest Base Camp, just our team. And the whole time we were up in the Western Khum climbing the same route that goes up to the summit of Everest. It was just us and our 5 Sherpa and a cook.
One of the questions is, how did we prepare for Lhotse? So because it's in the fall, it's really difficult to be in ski shape. So we're coming out of a North American summer and diving into ice and snow and skiing. So one thing we did was use a hypoxico tent, and we put that on our bed, and that allows you to train at your normal elevation during the day. And we spent a bunch of time in Telluride prior to that, because Telluride is about the highest place we could get and live, being around 9,000 feet. And then we'd sleep at night in the hypoxico tent, and that would get us up to, I think we got as high as maybe 20,000 feet before we left, sleeping in that tent.
For quite a few weeks, we just ratcheted the level of our altitude every night up higher and higher, which really helps pre-acclimatize and let us go to high altitude a little bit faster.
And then we just did as many really long, super scrappy days as we could possibly manage in the mountains around Telluride. So I think one day we linked 13,000 foot peaks over the course of 10 hours or 11 hours. So for me, that's the best way to train, is just to have really long days.
Long days outside, endurance, doing a lot of vertical, a lot of hiking.
Not drinking a lot of water, sort of. I don't know if that's recommended training, but that's sort of what we did a few times.
And then we worked with these guys in Kathmandu for quite a long time.
Jim,
preparing
especially.
all of the logistics, getting all the equipment up into the mountains, and getting all of our gear up there, and renting ladders to go into the Khumbu Icefall. And it was a lot of prep.
Yeah.
Finally, we got there.
Yeah, that takes us into our next question. How did you stay confident and keep going while traversing the Khumbu Icefall? So if you're not familiar with Everest and Lhotse, they share about 90% of the same route to the summit. So just like Everest, you have to go through the Khumbu Icefall to gain the summit of Lhotse. And that was the biggest question in the overall puzzle of how we were going to tackle this without the support of any other climbing outfits, because like Jim said, we were the only ones there. So it was our Sherpa. We had 2 Icefall doctors who are also Sherpa, but they specialize just in finding the route through the Icefall. And then the 4 of us, Nick, Dutch, Jim, and I. And how are we going to put that route in safely and minimize our passes through? So that ties into a little bit of how we prep for the climb, by really honing our gear and equipment so that we're taking as little as possible through the Icefall to minimize our passes.
We were super committed to trying to keep our time down in that Icefall. It's probably the most
for all of
hazardous
us,
part of the whole expedition, and puts everybody that's in there in harm's way, just from falling ice or falling rock. And so we used single wall tents and lightweight stoves and really kept things to a minimum.
So Paulden was our sirdar for the expedition, and sirdar, it was his first time being a sirdar. Both Jim and I climbed with him a bunch on different trips, and he was really crucial in sort of coordinating the schedule with Jim. Jim had a really intense schedule of how we were going to go about this, and Paulden was sort of there to make it happen and organize the other four Sherpa. So it was Paulden's brother,
Tashi,
his son,
Ela,
and then
Erkin Sherpa, and
Furash. Yeah, and they were all like related to people we'd all climbed with them before, but it was all about just organizing the gear so that they weren't carrying too heavy a load, but we were also maximizing our passes through. And Jim and I did our best to help, which is sort of laughable by their standards because they're just so fast and so strong. We started out by carrying ropes and we'd leave them at where they left off the day before. But I mean, in the end, the Icefall was in really amazing shape, and it only took 3 days to set the route through the Icefall.
And we only had to use one ladder to get up to Camp 1, which in a normal season probably averages maybe 20 ladders to get
or
up
more,
that high.
Yeah.
And
so
sometimes it's up to like 50 ladders. So
yeah.
We had a really exceptionally good season to go in there. And yeah. There's another question here that says, what keeps you going after you've reached your physical limit? And gosh, we certainly did reach our physical limit a bunch of times. I think that the second time we went through the Icefall, we didn't use Camp 1. We went from our base camp up to Camp 2, and it was the first time we had our skis. We'd finally gotten our skis and our ski boots, and we set out in brand new ski boots, plastic 4-buckle Technica ski boots. And we started walking through rocks and ice and got into the Icefall. And I think 12 hours later, went from 17,000 to 21,000 feet. And you just keep going. You have some sugar, some goo, or some sort of synthetic energy. And
if you can imagine, like in a 12-hour day in the Himalaya, you start in the dark and it's super cold. It had snowed quite a bit, so we were breaking trail and plowing through anywhere from ankle high to thigh high snow. And then as we broke through the top of the Khumbu Icefall and we're making our way to Camp 2, the sun came out and it went from like -20 to 100 degrees out there. And then you're just dying from the heat. And it's pretty common to get heat stroke at those elevations with that kind of sun and that long of a day. And so for me, that's kind of what I like, is when you go past that physical, past your physical limit, and you really have to rely on your mental fortitude to just talk yourself through.
Yeah, you get quiet with yourself, and I think I keep going because I know I can. I've been there before, and
that's a big part of it.
I know that it's going to get better. There's a saying in endurance sports. It's no matter how good you feel or how bad you feel, don't worry, it'll change. And so I often, when I feel good, I try to eat food and drink water and realize I'm probably going to feel bad soon, and vice versa. But ultimately, we sort of kept going because we were chasing our dream of getting to the top of Lhotse and skiing back down, and the conditions were pretty amazing.
We actually didn't start up the mountain until September 12th, and we were able to summit on September 30th, which is pretty fast for being the only team out there and having to make the track and set lines and set the route, etc. The day we summited was a little ahead of when we thought we would summit, but based on the weather forecasting we had, we realized that we didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, we had some really good Swiss weather forecasters we were working with via satellite, and
the weather was coming in.
The wind was coming, and they said, you guys have to go on September 30th. So we went for it. And the next question is, how was the snow in the Lhotse couloir? The snow was a mixed bag of tricks. It was everything off the summit. The snow was really loose, kind of deep, unconsolidated sort of sugar snow. And there was a lot of snow sloughing down the mountain, and it was pretty intense up there. And then we got into a kind of hard wind slab section.
That was so unpredictable that you couldn't even within one turn, it would change where your tails would be in that same sugary, fluffy kind of snow, but your tips would be on absolute bulletproof, hard wind pack slab. So
some of it was breakable.
Sometimes it was breakable.
A little bit icy. There was occasionally just powder, like 6 inches of reasonably good powder on top of a firmer layer underneath that was exceptional for like 4 turns. And then the 5th turn would be totally breakable snow with a heavy pack on your back at 27,000 feet. And you'd lurch forward and try to not cartwheel down the mountain.
And then once we got out of the Lhotse couloir, which definitely took the majority of the time because of those conditions and the elevation, once we got onto the Lhotse face, we'd actually already skied probably a third of the Lhotse face like a few days before. And at least the Lhotse face, while the conditions weren't great, it's like this bubbly kind of ice. It was really consistent. So consistency was almost more important than quality, I would say. And we were able to relax and have a lot of fun on that part because we could just link a lot of turns. And then obviously you're descending pretty quickly. So you're having a ton of more oxygen and just feeling better. And it's like kind of, the horse headed back to the barn. We were pretty thrilled at that point to have successfully navigated the ski descent of the Lhotse couloir, and so the Lhotse face was pretty awesome as well. Jim had to run and chase the puppy. Sorry, he'll be back in just a second. I'm going to jump on to the next question. How do you build your mental strength to face tough situations and extreme conditions? So that just comes with time. That comes with putting yourself in these conditions, hopefully intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. But I have been on upwards of 40 expeditions. I already had climbed Lhotse before. I've been on Everest. I've been on several other 8,000 meter peaks. So that kind of mental strength and toughness comes from experience. It comes from putting yourself in those situations. And then once you do that, you are able to have confidence that you know what to expect. I have also had 2 kids, so that has provided me with a lot of toughness, just going through pregnancy, having kids, etc. Because that's a situation where you're not physically in control and you have to rely on mental fortitude. And so I often go back to that experience. I'm like, oh, this is nothing. The next question is what it's like to camp and sleep at high elevations in the Himalayas. You gotta go. We're chasing the dog.
Camping and sleeping at high elevations is it's cool. You can camp wherever you want. There's no reservations necessary. I guess you have to have a permit, but there was nobody else there. And so like this picture here, we camped at Camp 3. This is at about 24,000 feet. With a lot of help of our Sherpa, we dug this camp out and set up these tents. And
we were using single wall tents, which is about as minimalist as you can go for that sort of extreme environment, but they're incredibly lightweight and take up very little space in your pack.
And we were also trying to, this was Hilaree's wonderful idea, trying to climb without oxygen. So we were here at Camp 3 with no oxygen. Then we suffered out the afternoon and our headaches got a little worse and we started to feel pretty rotten. And there's not a lot of sleeping happening that high, sort of slightly in and out of consciousness. Really, you're just trying to pass the time, trying to stay warm, trying to stay hydrated, trying to take down a few calories because you have almost no appetite. It's not quite as as sweet as camping by the lake in the summertime, but certainly
Pretty
every
stunning
time you
view.
can get yourself outside of the tent or stick your head outside, the views are otherworldly, and you're looking down on the clouds, and it was a surreal experience. We were really, really psyched to be there.
And what you don't see in this picture is that upslope from us, just behind us, is Mount Everest, and it's just like looming right over your shoulder, and then Lhotse's right next to it. So you're just in amongst these giants, and it's incredible enough that the suffering is worth it. Put it that way.
Yeah, we have all of our gear there. Everything's ready. You're double checking things, getting ready. We woke up at just after midnight and left the tents at about 2 a.m. for our summit push. And next question is, how do you build your mental strength?
Oh no, I already did that one. Sorry. Yeah. What surprised us about our experience climbing and skiing, Lhotse?
I think the fact that we pulled it off surprised us a little bit. A lot of planning went into this, and we were really excited to make it happen. And the conditions surprised me for sure. I think when we went, I assumed we would have to rappel off the summit because there's a really steep section just below the summit.
Rappelling is when you have to make an anchor and use a rope to lower yourself through a certain section.
And then there's another section of the couloir that's referred to as the choke. And everyone that had climbed it, including Hilaree, that I'd ever talked to, said there's no way you'd be able to ski through that section. It's too narrow. But when
I climbed it in 2012, it was like, can you see this? It was like about this wide. So I climbed on the two walls on either side, and I thought there'd never ever be enough snow to make it skiable.
Snow had blown in there in such a way that it allowed us to sort of sneak through the narrowest part of the line without taking our skis off, without ever using a rope. We never touched the rope from the summit all the way to the bottom, which was just really incredible and fulfilling and
a huge surprise.
And really, like, I don't know, the best dream I've ever had, and it was happening right in front of our eyes. I think when we crossed the birch run at the bottom, we high-fived, and we had even shocked ourselves that we'd done it all just in such good style.
Yeah. And only Paulden and Tashi didn't summit. And they had gone up the day before with...
Tashi summited.
Oh, no, Tashi was with us. He summited.
Paulden and Eli.
Fiora didn't summit.
Right.
With Paulden.
Yeah.
Okay. But two of the others, Sherpa, had never summited Lhotse before, and they were super stoked. And then, so it was a big celebration when we got back to Camp 1, and just really awesome. Everybody was in good spirits. Nick was pretty destroyed, but so psyched. He
we skied down the mountain, and our photographers and our two Sherpa that we climb with down climbed from the summit all the way to base camp. So we were in base camp drinking Oban,
drinking a little whiskey by the time they got back down.
By the time they got back down, and one of our Sherpa, Erkin, had summited the night before by himself. He'd gone up there with 3 Sherpa, went almost to the summit, and Erkin summited by himself because he'd never been on the summit. And he really loved the skiing. He was with me on Cho'oyu and Everest earlier the same year when I had skis on both of those mountains, and he's taken up skiing himself and is now like going out into the mountains of the Himalayas in winter and skiing a little bit and posting stuff on Instagram. And
it's really
super cool for us to watch how
psyched
he is about skiing.
Okay, I guess that sort of wraps it up for our Lhotse questions. There's some background questions about like what got us into mountaineering. I think we both have our different entrances into mountaineering. For me, I didn't really start until I was 19 years old. I left home in Seattle and went to college in Colorado, and I started like climbing 14ers. It was the first time I'd ever really tied into a rope and started rock climbing. And I just loved it. I don't know, and I wanted to explore it as far as I could. Eventually, I moved to Chamonix, France, and really just stumbled into this path in life and learned so much in Chamonix. I think it's sort of the mecca for ski mountaineering with the lift access and also all the crazy situations you can get yourself in that you learn really fast.
Yeah, and I think for me it's fairly similar. I got into I was a little boy and I climbed trees and I always wanted to be outside climbing things, and I got into rock climbing when I was in maybe 8th or 9th grade and started rock climbing in the Bay Area in Mount Diablo, and started hiking up stuff and skiing back down in my backyard when we were in Tahoe in the winter. And one thing led to another, and I wanted to go into the mountains of the Sierras, and eventually found my way to Chamonix. And some of the most beautiful aesthetic ski lines are on big mountains in remote places, and you have to climb to get there. So the skiing's really what drew me there more than the mountaineering. Was I learned how to be a mountaineer so that I could ski back down these lines. I don't love down climbing as much as I love skiing down.
What's a safe way to get into mountaineering? Well, I would say a great way to start is find a community, find a touch point for where you can meet people. Use some of the many incredibly talented guides that we have in the US to get you started on something local in the Sierras, 14ers, Mount Washington. I don't know, something in your backyard or nearby.
It's kind
Climbing
of
gyms are not great right now because they're all closed, but often that would be where I would recommend you kind of start learning ropes and harnesses and gear and stuff like that. And plus, you can meet people in those situations. So hopefully that will.
Mountaineering is just really a mix of hiking and often more technically difficult terrain. So going on a hike in your backyard, climbing the tallest mountain you can get to in your current situation, maybe finding your way to a 14er, and then hiring a guide and going out and learning the ropes, learning how to rock climb. And then you start mixing it all together. And
I think that's what I love about it, is it's all these skills melted together, from rock climbing to running to skiing, alpine climbing. It's awesome.
What is some of your favorite gear?
I love the assault tents from North Face, or those single wall tents that you saw us using up high. They're just,
it's about a 3-pound tent
reliable.
that we've used at 24,000 feet on Lhotse and just below the summit of just below the summit of Denali on the whole Cassine Ridge. We used it for a few nights.
Hapsur in India.
Yep, and some really inhospitable weather and some really crazy places. This tiny little tent just has been it's pretty amazing.
I mean, I love all the ski technology and boots and everything. We ski on the Blizzard 0G stuff, and it's been amazing. Just for me, it's a more traditional cut to a ski, which I like because it does really well on steeps and on ice.
And I think on Lhotse specifically, we used a whole bunch of new Future Light product, and we were really psyched on how it performed and how lightweight it was.
We didn't wear a down suit. We just went straight with.
We had a whole layering system from base layers to lightweight outerwear, waterproof outerwear, and then a bunch of layers of down to keep us really warm. And our gear was pretty flawless on the whole expedition.
Okay, we've been going for a half an hour, so I think our time is up. But really enjoyed sharing some of the stories with everybody here, and hopefully we answered most all of the questions out there. If not,
our next mission. There's one more question about our next mission. Well, I think that we're all in this COVID-19 expedition together. and we're all doing it a little differently. And some people are really restricted, and others are really fortunate in being able to get out and get back to some normalcy of life. But gosh, it's a tough, new, anxious-ridden world, and I don't know when we're going to be able to go back and go back to the Himalayas and climb another 8,000-meter peak and
Yeah,
try
I
to
mean,
make
that
the
would
first
be
descent.
ideally where we would go back to is the Himalayas, but since that probably isn't happening for 2020, I think we both have really just been exploring our own backyard more and finding plenty of stuff to do there and keep us busy.
Yeah, it seems to work every time I go outside, and even when I'm not excited about going for a short walk or mountain bike ride, it usually exceeds my expectations. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's our short-term plan, and long-term we'll get back to some really rad
So
mountains.
we have one other quick question. What are favorite lines and summit in your home state? Well, for Telluride, for me, that's pretty. I mean, I really love Wilson Peak, and there's a beautiful line off the northeast face of Wilson Peak, which is a high 14er in Colorado.
This is our puppy's name, Wilson.
Which is also the puppy's name, Wilson, because I like that peak so much.
Yeah, and in Telluride, we were super fortunate that we literally ride our bikes to the trailhead and climb from town up into like 13,000-foot mountains and ski world-class couloirs back down. And then here in the Sierras, we also have some really amazing mountains that are close by, and the Sierras are kind of an endless range of new ski descents and the same old runs, which is pretty
just
fun.
In the last few years with Jim, I've gotten to explore the east side of the Sierras a bit, and there's some incredible stuff over there.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. It's been good. I hope you stay safe and sane and get outside and look for your own mountains.
Thank you.